Thanks for watching my video. Today we are going to talk about carbon handlebars, specifically the One-Up Component carbon handlebar. We're going to install that on a 2021 Stumpjumper alloy. If you've been following me, I've been trying to get the weight down on this bike. I've also been having a little bit of hand pain while I'm riding, so I'm really excited to do this install, and we'll walk through the One-Up component bar, how it's different from the bar that's on this bike, and talk a little bit about the weight savings. We'll weigh both of them, and I'll tell you a little bit about the One-Up bar and why it's kind of special to anything else that's out there on the market. We are going to tear down the handlebars, get both bars on the table, and give them a comparison. But what I will tell you to start with is you've probably seen, if you're shopping for handlebars or a stem and handlebar combo, there's a lot of talk in the industry about arm fatigue, hand fatigue, and the hardness and stiffness of the 35 mil diameter bars. And what's unique about the One-Up components is that they say they've solved that. And we'll go into some of the things about this bar that are unique that they say allow them to overcome that problem. Manufacturers like P&W, which I really like that manufacturer. I've got a set of P&W bars and grips on my wife's bike. They've said they're not going to move from the 31.8 because they believe that that's a better diameter and it's a more comfortable ride, that they're not going to go to the 35. And so I'm really interested to get these handlebars on the bike and give them a try. I have been having some hand fatigue and some wrist pain that I never had on my other bike, on this new bike. And so I'm really anxious to get these swapped out, and then we'll give it a ride test. Here on the top, you've got your Specialized stock bar, which is a 60-61 alloy, and then you've got your One-Up Components carbon bar. These are both 35 mil diameter. I got these off the scale. The spec bar is 0.765 pounds, and the One-Up is 0.5 pounds. So you're talking about a quarter pound of weight savings between the two bars. And then for the other specs, you've got, this one has a 30 mil rise. I'm taking it up to a 35 mil rise, 6 degrees of upsweep for the Specialized stock bar, and 5 degrees of upsweep for the One-Up component, and then 8 degrees of back for both bars. They are both 800 millimeters wide, so very similar in terms of upsweep, back sweep, and width. You're really talking about a quarter of a pound for weight savings. And then I want to get into the really cool design of this One-Up component bar to get what they're saying is the perfect mix of flex and stiffness to absorb those real chattery little bumps and avoid some of that hand fatigue that you're going to get with other 35 mil bars. They've gone from a round design to an oval to round out on the end. And if I just turn that bar a little bit, I think you can kind of see where it goes to a flat, almost oval, flattened out oval here. You got round, and then you got a flattened out oval section here, and then you got round again. And you can actually cut these bars down. They've got some markings on here for how far you can go with that. And then they've also got some markings for, it looks like it's super light, but they've got markings for, it looks like the degrees of back sweep, so you can kind of adjust that by eyeball. You probably do it by feel and by eye, maybe not. If not, maybe those will help. But that's a quick kind of rundown of the specs of these bars. Big testing results from One-Up Components on this bar. They're claiming they tested this against the major carbon bars on the market, as well as foam filled aluminum, they're saying that you could see a 21% increase in vertical compliance on this bar, which is maybe equates, think of that as like comfort, coupled with a 28% increase in steering stiffness or responsiveness. So those are like really more than marginal gains. Like that is something that you would feel on the trail. So I'm gonna get this new bar on the bike. We'll go through that install, couple things to consider, and then we'll get this out on the trail and I'll give you my impression. This is not really a complicated install, so I'm not gonna talk you through the whole thing, but there are a couple things that I want to cover as soon as I have a sip of my adult beverage here. It's late evening here in Texas, so I think that's allowed. But what I wanted to talk to you about was this carbon and alloy assembly compound. So you'll read different things online about this stuff. Some people think you need it, some people don't. Some have luck without it, some without. What I would tell you is the carbon bars or carbon parts sometimes just won't sit in with an aluminum part and will slide around. So the idea of this stuff is that it's got some friction to it that locks that bar in place. I'll put just a little bit on the inside of the headset. I won't do this on the brakes and any of the other items in my cockpit. Some people put it on their grips, even if they have a locking grip. I'll put it on the bar itself, but if I have any problems with those other components sliding around down the road, I'll come back and just put a little bit of this. I mean, it only takes a really, really small amount. You'd be amazed how much grip this stuff adds. And again, this is the Park Tool SAC 2. The other piece I want to talk about is torque specs. And that's really important on a carbon component. You don't want to tighten those torque specs. I've talked about the torque wrenches in other videos, so make sure you have yourself a good torque wrench. This one is a 5 Nm, so no tighter than 5 Nm. And your bike may be different, but on this Specialized headset, you tighten the top all the way down and then you tighten the bottom end, but you don't want to go any tighter on that than 5 Nm. So make sure you have a torque wrench. Make sure you think about that when you're installing a carbon bar. Last thing you want to do is spend $150 on a component and then screw up the install. So I got a little bit of my SAC 2 Park Tool carbon compound on here to kind of lock that bar. Tools SAC 2. And I wanted to slow things down just for the probably the most important part of this install, which is to make sure you don't over tighten this bar. Manufacturer spec is 5 Nm on this bar. And so I'm just gonna go ahead and do this while you guys, I got my torque wrench set here, and I'm gonna do these just kind of, I'm gonna go a little bit, say quarter turn on each side till we get this just right. There we go. All right, that's that. Don't be tempted to over tighten it. Do the manufacturer's spec. Make sure you got your torque wrench all set. So at the end of the day, is it worth it for a $150 handlebar upgrade? Just like any other upgrade on your bike, this is totally personal. for me, this was a great upgrade. It got my weight down on the bike by 1/4 of a pound, which is my goal for this bike, is to keep getting the weight down because it still feels a little heavy for me. It looks great on this bike. Most importantly, it improved my riding position a little bit, where I'm a little more upright. My wrists feel like they're in a better position, and it really does eat up some of the bumps and on the real kind of rattly stuff that I went over today. I didn't feel as much vibration, I felt like, coming through. So I think OneUp has really kind of figured out how to solve for that gap between the 31.8 and the 35, and they've made a really great handlebar.